Okay, so you guys can see my screen. Maybe I can do. There we go. Okay, cool. Oh, that's fine. I'll just do it this way. Okay, so basically we're talking about pricing of web design services. And so we started out kind of talking about some of the factors that determine pricing. So, it's determined oftentimes by the demand, obviously, and options within the market. As most of us that have been involved with freelancing or web development, design, can know there's lots of options now in the marketplace, and that oftentimes drives down the prices. So we do have to contend with that, and that obviously changes the way we approach quoting projects. We may need to think about how to change our offering so that we can maintain the same price or charge more for services, or we're going to be faced with the downward pressure of competing against AI builders and web builders and that sort of thing. There's also what the clients can afford. Now that's really important. That's something I always think about. It's something that I talk about and think about when it comes to which market you're in, because if you were in a particular market and you want to charge $50,000 for websites, but your clients don't have $50,000, then it's going to be a problem. So, and then of course the perceived value as well, and that's really important. That kind of goes back to value-based pricing. I'm going to go back to this. Yeah, this is better. Okay, so meeting the demand, web design industry is evolving with platforms and AI generated sites. Businesses do need to create custom solutions. Businesses still need custom solutions. So even though there are these AI generation types of things and all of those kinds of solutions out there, businesses and business owners still require custom solutions for branding, performance, and conversion. So these can be opportunities for web designers to hone their skill set or hone their offering in order to charge more for services. And then and more companies are investing in strategy-driven websites rather than just aesthetics. So this is the niche that I'm sort of in. So I don't try to price myself down or compete with folks that are lowballing and compete with web builders. I just offer more strategy, but there are different ways that you can do that. You may offer more branding, for example, and that would be a way that you could try to combat the race to the bottom, so to speak. So generally, what are clients willing to pay? So high-end agencies will oftentimes charge $10,000 to $50,000 or more for sites, and freelancers, which we primarily are here. Freelancers tend to charge $2,000 to $10,000 per site, and so it's just something to be aware of when doing these types of proposals. That who are you going to be competing against? If you're competing against freelancers, this is the range you're going to be in. If you're competing against high-end agencies, that's the range you're competing in. The value perception of websites depend on ROI, functionality, and business goals. So you really have to. It's really important to understand the industry that you're working in, understand what your client's business goals and what they're trying to achieve. And then pricing will oftentimes depend on the target audience and the business needs. So as I mentioned before, it's important to understand who your audience is and why they need what they need. Okay. So there are some basic pricing models to be aware of. So you've got your hourly rate. That's generally where a lot of freelancers sort of live in, just charging for hours. But there are other options as well. Fixed project pricing is something that I do. A lot of, not always, but a lot of what I do is fixed project pricing. It's easier to sell, but risky. It can be risky if there's scope creep. Then you've got retainers. That's basically where you get paid a monthly fee for ongoing work updates and support new features. And then you also have your subscription pricing. So clients will pay a recurring fee for website access, hosting, and maintenance. And this is basically your sort of like a little like pros and cons for each one. So I'd actually, before we move on, just pose to the group if you guys have any preferences when it comes to for those of you guys who are freelancing or have freelanced, would you have a preference of which type of pricing model you prefer? Anyone want to give their preference?
A retainer.
You like the retainer?
Yeah, I like the retainer.
Okay. Why?
Because you can, you know what's coming in, and it's easier to pay the bills, and it basically kind of saved me. You know, once I added, oh, you can add maintenance now after you've got your website. It has saved me even when I had to go to the hospital. So I still had that coming in, and then I just got somebody to help me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you quickly about the retainer. Do you have a particular way that you approach how do you pitch that to that so that your clients are more likely to be okay with the retainer?
Well, I used to pitch it in after I did their website.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, one, people who get WordPress sites, you got to educate them that, you can't just let it sit here or one day it's going to break.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows when, right? And it helps if they're a company that actually needs updates. Like I ended up getting referred to some churches, and every week they need bulletin change. They need this change. And some of the people I did with, they're older than me. And so they're like, you do it. Right. I had one company. I told the lady, they were a property manager. And after I did it, I said, okay, let me show you how you change text. She goes, nope, you do it. I said, what? She goes, I don't want to know. I don't even want to learn how to do it. I'll send it to you. Done. So some people, they just want it done. Right.
Yeah.
And then I found that some people, they like at least being connected to me if they had questions too. Then they knew who they could call. So some people just stay connected for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think go ahead, Mario.
Sorry. I just want to say real quick that I do believe, because I've seen, like, I work with the first three models, and I think the key to any of them is make sure you manage expectations and set down like clear goals and clear scope. Because again, regardless of, like, if you're going to be working hourly, but you set a goal, okay, this is going to take X amount of hours, and there should be no surprises. The problem with surprises is usually you say this is going to take 2 hours and you end up spending 20, which is, it happens a lot. So again, that's the problem, is not setting proper goals or proper scope. Same with the fixed one. If you have a proper scope and if you discuss everything with the client, and as soon as they say, oh, but we wanted it this way, you say, well, that's not part of the scope, so we can review it, then it's fine. So I think in general, it's how you approach the amount of work, again, from the expectations of the clients as well as your estimating. That's usually the key. No matter, like, it's, if you don't do that to the best of like you and the client, it's always going to be a problem, no matter which model you use, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. I got a call this morning about something, and I'm like, that sounds like spam. But they're like, well, can we just delete them out of our media section? And I said, well, yeah, you can, but you need redirects. At that point, I said, for every single link you got. And so I'm like, he's like, well, can you just do that? I said, yeah. I said, but that's going to be an invoice. Like, they're a maintenance client, but me sitting there doing all those redirects and in your maintenance. So that's something I sometimes have to find that I have to remember sometimes when they're on maintenance to say, wait a minute, that's not part of your maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that's also a challenge, I think, is when you're in the and this oftentimes happens when people are asking for like tech support. So I know, and I think I'm pretty sure if you're doing any kind of design development type of tasks, tech support issues are gonna arise, and you don't necessarily know exactly what you're gonna need to be, what type of hurdles you're gonna be running up against. It's where you can find yourself stuck in a particular area, like dealing with server issues that you need a host to deal with, and that now you're going back and forth with the host, or any kind of weird kind of things that can happen that can cause your time to balloon. So that can be an issue as well. I think even if you're doing if you're on a retainer, and let's say your retainer, I don't know if Carol, if you have like your retainers are like you get 4 hours, of support, but you might have run into an issue that will cost you 10 hours. So and so those are the types of things that you're like, okay, it's not really, it's always a guessing game, but you can also end up in an issue like that too.
Yeah, but then it weighs itself out sometimes when you get a customer where they hardly ever bother you, but they still pay.
Mm-hmm.
The best,
Yeah,
the best one, the
yeah,
best
that's
customer.
It's true. It's true. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll continue in that. So we basically, those are kind of your models, and then the factors that will influence the pricing that you're willing you're able to charge will be obviously your skill and experience level, the industry and client type. So if you're dealing with startups versus enterprise, clearly you're going to charge more. Definitely do not offer $2,000 anything for enterprise clients. Scope of work, and honestly, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about that, and they were kind of like, yeah, who it was I was talking to, but yeah, I was explaining that when it comes to enterprise, they expect you to charge a certain amount. Like you don't actually, that happened to me where I had somebody had asked me to build them a portal, and it was a medium-sized business, a larger, not large business, but it was a medium-sized business, and they asked me to build them a portal. And I was like, well, it's not really that much work, so I think I'll charge this. I even thought I was padding it, and they were like, you need to charge more. Like the guy that I talked to was like, you're not charging, you probably want to charge a lot more for that. So like maybe you should charge this, because some of the things I don't know, like, okay, I have to deal with this amount of bureaucracy, or deal with these number of executives and get sign off from these people. And so a lot of these things you're going to think, oh wow, there's no way that I can charge this amount for this small amount of work, but they oftentimes expect it. So it's just something to be aware of. Scope of work, certainly that is going to matter. So it's important that you have a very clear idea of what the scope is. And that's why, of course, scope creep can be a problem when it comes to fixed price or any type of, but scope creep, particularly for fixed price, it's going to hurt the client if they scope creep on their own, and you're just charging them hourly. But if it's a fixed price and now you start seeing other things kind of sneaking into the scope, then you want to make sure that you don't end up hurting yourself with that. And then of course, the time and complexity involved in the project. And I would actually add to that the time, complexity, and risk, because there could be a considerable amount of risk if there's more complexity and there's more like there's some R&D that needs to go into it, and you need to figure out what the solutions are. So we've had some conversations about that how to address that in the past, but that's going to be something that can be an issue as well, and that's been an issue for me also. So make sure to try to avoid undercharging. Generally speaking, try not to go low with clients, and it does hurt long-term growth. It seems like because oftentimes, especially when people get started, they have this tendency to want to charge less to see if they can get themselves friendly with the clients, but that's not actually the way that you want to do it. Yeah, try not to go low with clients, because they won't raise the price on you later. They're just going to expect you to do more for less.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When you're starting out, it's hard to charge more because you don't really have a portfolio of work to prove that you can do the work for the amount of money that you're charging. And is it that wrong to like kind of, you know, undercharge, and at the same time, since you've never had the experience, you end up undercharging because you don't really know how long it's going to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, in my opinion, when it comes to, if you're building a portfolio, it's a little bit different because
Mhm.
the goal is not making money. The goal is to build a portfolio. So you can say, okay, I want to put together a portfolio. I would like to be compensated something. I'm going to charge what I can that I think will be reasonable. I think that's a different thing than if you're like actually charging for services, like for the purpose of making money. Then at that point, you want to make sure that, because oftentimes I think that for the pressure is, I want to charge less, and sometimes clients will do that. They'll ask you to okay, can you give me a break? I'll give you more work. It's like, wait a second, why would I want more work for less money? That doesn't make sense. so yeah, so yeah, sometimes they'll try to do that. Don't buy into that stuff. Just go, hey, stick to your guns and, okay, this is what my cost is. Like calculate the price and then like stick with the price. This is what it costs. Like, this is what it is, and be confident in that. That's what the value of this is, and don't let somebody under like lowball you or try to get you to drop your price or whatever. So yeah, that's what that is. But if you're building a portfolio, I think that's it's a different goal. So
Okay.
yeah, some people will just do the work like for free, just to build their portfolio. So I think that's, building your portfolio is a little bit different. But yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on that, or?
How much projects should you have in your portfolio before you can kind of,
I don't know.
or
Anybody?
just kind of go back and forth trying to see if you can get more money or not?
Yeah, I'll tell you, honestly, if you're building a portfolio in order to, I would say I wouldn't even worry. I will tell you this from experience. A lot of people won't even look at your portfolio. So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm not going to do this until I build my portfolio, but it might be a good idea to build a portfolio if you want to do that. But I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily hinder you from doing the stuff. A lot of people won't look at it. And they'll just say, yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I think referral, like testimonials, to me are important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they would look at that more even than they would the portfolio.
Because the thing about portfolio is the difficult thing about portfolio, and I think Heisey might have some thoughts on this as well. Well, the tricky thing about the portfolio is that if you have projects in a variety of different like industries and sectors, then what you're showing is not really going to give an indication of what you're going to do for them. Because like if I have a website for a cosmetic line, and then I have a mechanic that comes to me and he wants a website, he's not going to look at that cosmetic website and think, oh wow, they're cool, I think I hired that guy. Like it's not necessarily beneficial. And so for those of us that have websites in different industries and like different verticals and different types of business, and also the style, it's very individual. The branding is very individual. Like what you do for the clients is going to be very individual. So it's going to be difficult for them to look at your portfolio and go, yeah, that's what I want. Because oftentimes if I'm showing somebody stuff out of the portfolio, it's kind of not unrelated to what I would be doing for them anyway. And so it would actually maybe even work against me, because they'll say, well, I don't want a website that looks like that. And it's like, well, yeah, because that's what that client wanted. This for you will be doing something completely different. So yeah, I think ultimately what the goal of the portfolio is just to build trust that you're like a real person and you're not going to like ghost in like a month, or like, or that you're legitimate. So, and I think like Carol said, a lot of that can be gotten from testimonials. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, be confident. Don't let clients dictate what your pricing should be. So then how to communicate your value? So we've talked about before value-based pricing. How can you communicate your value? So you can sell businesses growth, brand authority, and conversions rather than just selling them a website. So clients will come to you and say, hey, I want a website, but reality is what they really need is other things. They need to to grow their business. They need to establish brand authority. They need to improve their conversions. They may not even understand, if they're a smaller business client, they're not going to really even understand what that means. So some of that's going to be kind of teaching them what the website's even there for, but selling them that rather than selling them just a website, because again, they can just go to Wix and build a website. So if you're just selling them a website, it's going to be much more tricky to establish the value. And then use testimonials and past results to justify the pricing. We just talked about that. And then make sure that, and also their options, this is what I do too, is offering pricing tiers. So sometimes one of the challenges when it comes to pricing is that one of the top things, one of the most important things to understand is what your client's budget is, but it's also one of the most difficult things to get from the client. So you'll ask, hey, what's your budget? And oftentimes they say, I don't know, or they'll be cagey about it and they won't, well, how much does it cost? So there are certain things that they'll say that'll allow you to get the budget out of them, but oftentimes the pricing tiers will unveil what their budget actually is. So you can say, hey, I do have something that's, kind of a budget level thing. If you want to get started, we can get you in that. Or if you want something really nice and a really nice thing where, the higher end clients, like it's kind of going to be in this range, they'll generally tell you where they want to be at when you do that. So I think that's a pretty good option also. So final thoughts, web design's market is competitive, but strategy focused designers will stand out. Make sure to choose a pricing model that aligns with your business goals and expertise, and communicate value to justify your rates and attract higher paying clients. That is it. So
How do you do that? How do you communicate value? Because I find that people don't know, like they don't know what they need. And so then they start looking for the cheapest thing out there, and they're not aware that they didn't get really what they needed. They don't even know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been to so essentially this is like a major sort of sales type of thing, right? Like, I mean, as far as like sales techniques, it's really based around establishing what the actual need is. And so just like I said, like if people come to you and they're like, hey, I need a website, the reality is that's not really what they need. So you have to be able to like kind of get past what they say they need and to what they're actually needed, or that their need actually is. And then when you can like establish what the issue is and what their pain point is and why they're coming to you now, because oftentimes they'll say I need it, and then they'll say, and then like you're like, great, I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Hey, I need a website. Cool. Okay, great. Let's talk about blah blah blah. And you go through this whole thing, and then then you don't hear anything for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So like, okay, they didn't really need what they said they needed. There was something that happened, and at that moment, I had one guy not too long ago reached out to me, and he said he was reaching out to me because his wife was bugging him about it, and my wife was bugging me. He's bugging me about the website, and I need to get the website done. Mm-hmm. So if it wasn't for the wife, he wouldn't have called me. It's like it's that kind of thing. So what's his pain point? He just doesn't. Maybe she's maybe she's putting him pressure on him, whatever, and he doesn't and he's like trying to he doesn't want to he doesn't, maybe he's got an issue with that or whatever. I don't know what their relationship is like, and I don't necessarily want to get into that, but the point being is that there are certain things that will be like, it's not about the website, it's about the wife. Okay, cool. So how do we deal with the wife, like that kind of thing? Or sometimes it's not about the website. So oftentimes they're not getting the sales, and they're like or maybe it's there's so many different things that that can be reasons why they want to do with the site. But understanding what that is will then allow you to establish the value. So we have to try to uncover what their real issue is, I think.
I have a question. Do you, and I guess this is for anybody, but would you factor in something like say, for example, you're talking with someone about setting a site for like a beauty salon or something like that, and maybe you don't know about that industry or whatever, like would you factor in like some amount of research that you would do to go into understand like the industry and what their competitors are doing? And like is that I don't know, is that something people factor in with pricing? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot. I'll let somebody else answer. Does anybody else have a thought on that? High C, maybe?
Yeah, I think I always will do, I include that part, for market research and competitor, because you really have to understand the industry to, like say I created a website for a real estate company, although my niche is in health and wellness, and there are two totally different niches. So you can make the real estate website look like a cosmetic, website. So, you really have to know their competitors and what styles it's in that industry. Yeah, I think so. Unless if they have somebody who's in charge of that, like, I don't know what that position, like a creative director or brand strategies, that they say, oh, we're gonna give you all the guidelines. You just take care of the design part or the development part. So then you don't have to worry about it. They give you all the colors, typography, everything. You just follow it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely, like, I think it depends. So for me, as I mentioned, I do tiers. So if I'm doing like, like budget tier or whatever, then no, I'm not doing any of that. So I'll basically, obviously that's the situation where I'll just grab a template and then throw some stuff into a template for them. And then I have an intermediate tier where I do a little bit more, like I'll do a little bit more with the template. But if I'm doing custom, I can either do like grab the branding that they provide to me, or if I have to come up with the branding, then I'm going to of course add in the R&D necessary to figure out what's the right branding for them. So yeah, so that all kind of goes into it. That's why, like, the discovery meeting is really important. It's really important to understand like exactly what you need, because oftentimes clients they don't know what they need, and then so you have to really just like uncover what they need by having that conversation.
I feel like people also, like, if you're getting into this, I feel like it's a good idea to maybe go after a certain customer, because I feel like sometimes people, like, they do that, that's who I need, like they do that for churches. I need her because she does churches. But anyone could do it. But then something about you niching into that, they feel like that's who I need.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, niching is definitely a way that you can increase the value, because then you can it's you're much more likely to be seen as the expert. And it's, I've talked about this before, like oftentimes the websites aren't even that good, and when you see these sort of like niched things, like there was one that I saw that was a senior living. They did websites for senior living, and they were complete garbage. They were just templates, but they were total garbage, and they were exactly the same thing, just they changed the color palettes, like and there was nothing custom about anything, and they sold these things for, I don't know, like $5,000. Actually, I think they might have done like they might have had on it. Might have had some sort of like couple $1,000 monthly thing or something ridiculous, where it was like, wow. But it didn't matter, because the people who were buying these things didn't care, and they were large companies anyway, or nonprofits that had lots of money or something like that. So they just didn't. It's not something that they didn't even really. There was even a question about. So yeah, that was one of those where you definitely know that you don't need to necessarily charge, like figure out the hours and then go, okay, this is what I'm charging based on the hours. That's more value-based pricing. So.
And he Chung, I've seen you showed us your work and stuff. I feel like you can charge somebody. They don't have.
No, I need to find customers with money. When I go to some of these business networking events, people are starting out, so they don't really have a budget. And I mean, for them, since I've been here, I would probably just use a template going forward. But yeah, I mean, I do in my portfolio have examples of my coding skills, just so I can have something to show. But thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on anything or questions or?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, I think I didn't need
No,
more.
you can go ahead.
Oh, go
You can
ahead.
go ahead.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know, like, these days for freelancing, there are many platforms available. So, do you have any tips for navigating them, or like any other advice in general? Like, I mean, I know networking or like individual connections really help, but on these online platforms, it's really not sure if like some of the things that we have discussed would those be applicable there as well. So just wanted to your advice or thoughts on that.
Yeah, you mean like Upwork and those types of like Upwork
Yes.
and things like that? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think that for when it comes to that, it's I haven't spent a lot of time on there, but I think that it's like it's going to be I think you are competing in a more, there's a lot of downward pressure in there because there are people all over the world, and like so, and they're all like, it's like, yeah, it's a massive like it's just a massive like, it's like going to Amazon looking for somebody to build your stuff. So I feel like, if you put yourself into that place, you're a little bit pigeonholing yourself into pricing yourself down, because you have to compete against people who are going to be charging very, very little for the services. But it can be a good way. It can be a way to get started, like to get a lot of work. But I feel like it's not going to be high paid work though. That's my feeling. But I haven't done it personally. But I just, from what I've seen, I don't know. Has anybody here done Upwork? I see. Have you done Upwork?
I haven't tried Upwork, but before I tried another website, which is a UK site called People Per Hour. So I
Mhm.
did a few project like graphic design projects there, but the pay was very low.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good for people who just started, but
Yeah, because you wouldn't necessarily go.
very hard to make a living. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't go there for like, that's really for people who are like hiring up one-off developers or designers. Like, they're probably not going to be paying a lot for the services. So
But
yeah,
I think for those platforms, if you are very experienced already, I think they can charge more. Those are the ones that get a lot of good reviews. And
yeah. All right, cool. I'm gonna